So as I mentioned, we are in our fourth week and should have finished by now. By now, all of you should have finished writing basic computer components. That would have been the first week. You should have completed your homework on the questions. I have already sent out the marks for that. So when you check your Google Classroom, you will see the marks for it. Input devices, this would have covered 2 weeks. That was last week and the previous week. So you should have completed writing these notes by now. Up to the table. The table is what you can print if you have that ability. And you should have completed your homework for these questions here so far in the Google form once again. By this afternoon, you should get your scores for that homework. So today, we'll be starting with output devices, and we should cover everything in this topic here. And by this afternoon, once again, you'll get another Google form for these questions for your homework. And you will have by next week, Monday, once again, to complete writing these notes here. So I hope everyone is up to date with their notes and with their homework. How are you guys coming along with the notes and the homework?
Good, sir.
Good?
Good, sir. I'm almost finished writing output devices.
Okay, that's very nice. So output devices is relatively short, so we shouldn't have much issue with that. So let's get started for today. If you guys can remember, hardware has 5 general categories. We first looked at input devices, and now we're going to move on to output devices. So we're going to be looking at what are the types of output we have and what devices can produce that kind of output. So if we Alright, so let's make a start. Let's have a reader for the first paragraphs here. Let's have Samaru. Can you read for us?
Yes, sir. To get process information out of a computer, you may need an output device. Output means to show, print, or store the result of data. The most common types of output are soft copy. This is not permanent. It includes output from a computer monitor, audio or bracket sound from speakers, electrical signals, and output from one computer to another. Hard copy. This is also called permanent output, since it is printed for you to any review away from the computer. Examples are printed reports and pictures.
Very good, thank you. So, when you hear the word output, you need to think of some sort of result or data that is either shown, so it could be something shown on the screen, or something that is printed, for example, a letter, or even data that has been stored. So For some of the output, you can hear the output like sound, or you can see the output like your monitor, or maybe some sort of letter or document. But there's some outputs also that you cannot see, that you cannot feel or touch, because those outputs are stored. So they might be stored as some kind of file or some sort of data somewhere that some other device can make use of it. Now, there are two kinds of output. We have soft copy output and hard copy output. So if you remember the diagram that I would have given you, we have our computer, we have hardware, we have software, and when we branched off with the 5 categories, output devices was one of them. And for output devices, you can further branch off with 1, soft copy, and 2, hard copy. Now it's important for you to remember the difference between the two kinds of output, or the two types of output. The first one is soft copy, and the main thing to remember is that it is not permanent, or it does not stay there all the time. So this can include what is on the monitor. So whenever you have, or whatever you have on the monitor, whenever you turn that monitor off, or if you turn your computer off, it does not remain on the monitor. Audio from a speaker, whenever you stop playing the music, it stops. Electrical signals, if the current is cut, you will no longer have that electrical signal, and so on. So these are some examples of soft copy. So it's just like when we were looking at hardware and software. Here the components of the computer, when we're looking at hardware, we said that hardware refers to the physical parts of the computer, and software is basically programs that you cannot touch or feel. So you could think of the same thing for soft copy and hard copy. When you hear soft, it is something you cannot feel, something you cannot touch. So it's basically some sort of data on the computer. Either the data that you're seeing on the screen, data as audio, or data as some sort of signal that you're sending to maybe another device. Hard copy now is the actual physical output. It is permanent. So one main example of the hard copy output is a printed document. So a printed report, picture, a letter, whatever the case may be, whatever is printed, that will be a physical copy, and it's permanent because you always have that physical copy. If your printer is turned off, you still have your letter. If the computer is turned off, you still have your letter that you would have printed. So you guys understand the difference between soft copy and hard copy?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So we'll be looking at the first kind of device that we use for output, and that is a display device. So a display device would be like the screen that is on your laptop, the screen that is on your tablet, your smartphone, and so on. So which one of these outputs would you guess it is? Soft copy or hard copy?
Sir, soft copy.
Copy.
Very good, soft copy. So display devices, what is on your monitor, what is on your laptop, your phone, your tablet, they are soft copy. So let's get more into display devices. Let's have Shalon, could you read for us?
Yes, sir. Computers usually display output on a screen or a monitor. Some monitors are separate and need to be plugged into the computer system unit. Others, such as laptops and mobile devices, have their screens integrated to the system unit and keyboard. Televisions can also be used as computer monitors with some additional connections. Other display devices include interactive whiteboards, also called smartboards, used for teaching or presentations. These large touch sensitive plastic boards respond to input either directly by connection to a computer or through other devices such as a projector, tablet, or magnetic pin.
Good, thank you. So I think there's a term here that I did not mention in the first one of the first classes, which should have been brought up. Does anyone know what this term here, computer system unit, refers to? Any idea? Okay, because I don't remember mentioning it.
So is it like the power supply and stuff like that? Like what software is it running?
No, not that. So you have your computer. For those of you who have a desktop, you and somebody says that you have a CPU. What do they refer to? Or you never heard of that term?
Central processing unit.
All right. So let me clarify everything for you guys. Yes. Good afternoon, Monique. So on my screen, you should see some images here. Now let me get a good picture of what I want to show you. All right. This is a nice picture. Let me download that one. So, for those of you who have a desktop, you would note that it's a large box. It doesn't have to be large, but it's a box that a metal case that contains all of your components. It has the motherboard that we would have discussed. It has the RAM, the storage, the CPU, your hard drive. Everything is inside of this metal casing. So, with the other images that we have here, some of you may have seen some boxes looking like these here. These are called your system units. So this entire case in here that you're seeing is referred to as the system unit. Now, some persons may call it the CPU, but that is incorrect because as I would have taught you by now, the CPU is a device that is on your motherboard. So when you would have drawn that diagram of the general layout of your CPU and memory on a motherboard, your CPU was on the motherboard. It's a small chip on the motherboard. So as you can see in this image here, your motherboard, this device here, the circuit board here, is inside of the system unit. You can see it's inside here. And this microprocessor is another term for CPU. So this CPU is on the motherboard, the RAM, the memory is on the motherboard, and so on. So everything is basically connected to the motherboard, and the motherboard is placed inside of the system unit. And this entire metal case in here is what they call the system unit. So you guys understand that? Yes or no? Did you guys follow that? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's important for you to remember what is the system unit, what is the motherboard, what are these terms referring to. So please don't confuse the term CPU with the entire case. Some persons might say that, but the CPU refers to this chip here that is on the motherboard, not the case. The case is called the system unit. So going back to display devices, there are a few output display devices that you will notice in your everyday life. So one is a monitor that you would connect to your desktop. So for those of you who may not know what a monitor looks like, this is an example of a monitor. So this is one form of output device, a soft copy output. Now your laptop, for those of you who've seen one, your laptop has a built-in monitor you can see, a built-in screen. So that is your soft copy output. Even your mobile devices, your tablet, your phone, they have a built-in screen. And that is what they use for the soft copy output. Your television is also a soft copy output device. Your television can also work as a monitor if it has the right connections to connect to your computer. We also have whiteboards, also called smart boards, and it's basically almost looking like a whiteboard, but you can interact with it like if it's a large tablet. So imagine a large tablet, and you can interact with that screen. So it's like a whiteboard that we have in the lab with a combination of the functionalities of a tablet. So you can write on the screen or have videos on the screen while you can still have that whiteboard feature. All right, so let's move on to the next two paragraphs. Um, Akila, can you read for us?
Yes, sir. The most the most common types of display device include LCD, liquid crystal display, flat screens, and LED, light emitting diode,
Diode.
screens on handheld devices and laptops. Sir, continue.
Yes, continue.
A monitor contains a matrix or array of bright dots of red, green, and blue, known as RGB. These can be blended to display millions of colors. Mapping the location and color information of each bit of data creates a computer image. This is known as a bitmap, BMP. The bitmap image seen on a monitor is made up of thousands of pixels. Pixels stand for picture, pix element. Features of a computer screen include its size and resolution.
Good, thank you. So these two paragraphs here are basically describing how a monitor, not only a monitor, but any display device, how they are made. So there are different kinds, different types of display devices, but two common ones are called LCD or liquid crystal display or LED, light emitting diode display. So even your televisions, you might hear that one of it is a LED TV, or even today we have another form called OLED TV. I know some of you may have heard that. Some display devices also have that technology. So it's basically how the display is made. So let me see if they will show us LCD display. So basically, you won't notice the difference physically. Like if you look at an LCD monitor and an LED monitor, you won't see the difference because they all look like a monitor. But it's the actual technology of how they are made. The LCDs have liquid crystals inside of it. It's just as the name indicates, it has liquid crystals inside of it, and that is how it produces what is on the screen. The LED has light emitting diodes inside of it, and it uses those light emitting diodes to produce the display on that screen. Now, for this paragraph here, what it's trying to help you to see is that the display from monitor for a TV, for a smartphone, tablet, whatever the case may be, they're all made up of pixels, small dots that produce light. And these lights, when they are combined, they give us an image. So pixel stands for picture element. That's something that you need to remember. And a pixel produces one of three colors. One standard of producing color is called RGB. And RGB refers to red, green, and blue. So a pixel can produce a red color, a green color, or blue color. For those of you who've had, say, any of you ever had a big back TV or still have one?
Had one, sir.
Had one,
Had one,
sir.
sir.
You ever
Sir, I
try
had
Had
one.
one, sir.
you ever try put your face really close to the TV? You saw some red, green, and blue squares.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
Those
sir.
sir.
those are the pixels that you were seeing there. So these red, green, and blue that you're seeing here, those are the pixels. So each color that you're seeing is an individual pixel. And depending on basically how grouped they are, how many pixels they are, that would determine the size and resolution of the screen. So for these two paragraphs, what you need to remember is that for display, there are different ways they are built. They are built with LCD, which is with liquid crystal. They are built with LED, which are light emitting diodes, to show that display. There's other technologies like OLED, and I can't remember the rest. And for this last paragraph here, they all function. This is how they all function. So it doesn't matter if it's an LCD, if it's an LED, they are all made up of pixels. For those of you who have a phone or a tablet, if you take a small drop of water, I'm not telling you to soak your phone or tablet. If you take a small drop of water and you put it on the screen, you would actually be able to see the red, green, and blue pixels on your phone or your tablet. A small drop, just a small drop. You'll see.
Sir, same thing with the TV too. If you do that, you'll see the picture.
Right, it's the same thing. So when you wipe your TV with a wet cloth and it's on, you would see those pixels inside of the water drop. So it doesn't matter which technology is used, LCD, LED, OLED, they're all made up of pixels, and one way of arranging those pixels is RGB, red, green, and blue, and when they are grouped together, they make an image, and that is what you see on the display device. So let's move on to features of the computer screen. First, we'll look at size. Dante, can you read for us?
Sure, sure. Size. This is the dimension of the screen, which shows the output. Common desktop screens are from 14 inches to 19 inches, measured diagonally. Larger sizes are now available.
Good.
So,
So
for resolution,
that's it.
hmm,
So one feature of a screen is its size. And something important for you to remember is that a screen is measured diagonally. Does anyone know what is the direction of the word diagonal? What is the direction? Left to right, up, down. What is the direction?
Left to right.
Nope, not left to right.
Upper
So
left,
something like a
slanting to lower
X,
right.
so like a slant, like
A slant. It looks like a slant. So
Upper left to lower right.
very
Sorry.
good. Upper left to lower right. So we have this, say this page here that I have here. This is the upper left here, and this is the lower right here, and that is diagonal. So a screen, doesn't matter if it's a TV, it's a monitor, or even your smartphone, it is all measured diagonally. This direction here. That is how they are measured. So they're not measured top to bottom, they're not measured left to right. They are measured diagonally. And they are measured in inches. So resolution now. Emmanuel, can you read for us?
yes, sir.
This determines how clear and detailed the output on the screen can be. Pictures on the screen are made up of tiny dots. One dot equals one pixel. The more pixels per inch, the clearer and more detailed the graphic.
Good. So as I would have mentioned, these colors here, one of them is a pixel. And the more pixel we have, that means the clearer and the more detailed our image will be. So that is why when a display device gets larger, for example, a 40-inch TV, 50-inch TV, 60, 8-inch TV, they need more pixels because the larger you get, the more pixel you need in order to make the image clearer. For those of you who would have had a big back TV, you would have been seeing the pixels, and that meant you had a lower quality image. But today, for those of you who have maybe like a 32-inch TV or a 40-inch TV, you don't really see the pixel, but you see a more clearer image. So the less pixels you see, that means they're so compact or they're so many that you cannot really see them, but because of that, you get a clearer image. So more pixels, clearer and detailed the image gets. Color, gray, read for us. Jaim, Nario, is there anyone in class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Ja-
sir.
Jahim, can you read?
What part, sir?
Color.
Okay, sir. The number of colors displayed can vary from 16 to 256 to 64,000 to 16.7 million. The more colors, the smoother the graphics appear, especially photos.
Good. So basically our displays can display only a specific amount of colors. For example, um, we have the color red, but when you think of it, red has many variations inside of it. So each of those kinds of red will have a specific number. So when it says all of these hundreds and all of these thousands and millions of colors, it is also counting all of these variations that you have, from a darker red all the way to a lighter red, and that goes for all the different colors. So that means the more colors our display can produce, the better the quality of our image, of our display. Monique, can you read the last two? Monique? Naisha, can you read? Or Nisha?
Me, sir?
Yes.
The cursor is a symbol that shows where you are working on the screen. It may appear as as an
Just an eye symbol.
as an eye for text and as a sign for the mouse pointer location. Scrolling. This allows the text or graphics to be moved or up, or down, or brought into view on the screen.
Good. So our display devices, they use some sort of way for us to indicate where we are interacting with it. So if our display is not touch, then we basically have to use a device that we can point wherever we want to interact. So that's why we have a mouse, and that mouse gives us a cursor or a pointer so that we can interact with our display. Because if our display is not touch, then we won't have any way to interact with it. But for tablets and smartphones, since they are touch, we don't need a pointing device like a mouse in order for us to interact with it. Okay, Monique. So, along with cursor and pointing, we can also do scrolling so that we can see different parts of the display. So remember, all of this part of the document is part of my soft copy display. But in order for me to see all of it, I might have to zoom out. But in order for me to read the information, I would have to also scroll up and scroll down. Alright, so that is it for display devices. I was hoping to see if we can finish off printing devices also, but let's see if we can finish that off. So is there any question on display devices? We covered a lot of features and a lot of
Sir, one question.
yes.
Sir, what's the difference between hard copy and soft copy again?
Basically, one you can feel and one you cannot. One is permanent and one is not permanent. So anything that is permanent, like paper, that you can feel, think of that word hard copy, like hardware, that is permanent. That is hard copy, paper, something that you print. But soft copy now is something you cannot feel, something you cannot touch, and it is not permanent. So things like your monitor, if you turn off the monitor, if you turn off the computer, that soft copy is gone. If you turn off your computer, you turn off your phone, you turn off the music player, the music has stopped. It's no longer an output. If you turn off the power to some sort of device, you lose electrical signals and you no longer have that output. So it's output that is not permanent. But hard copy is permanent in that we always have this hard copy. Did that help?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Alright, let's move on. So we're going to look at printing devices. And printing devices are your hard copy output device. So display devices were your soft copy, and printing devices are your hard copy output device. So let's look at the kinds of output devices. Timothy, printing devices, can you read for us?
Yes, sir. Printing devices. No matter how simple or complex the data processing operation is, the final result must be made available in a user-friendly form, and usually in the form of permanent record. Printers are devices which output a hard copy of your work. The choice of printer depends on the speed, quality, and quantity you want, and the cost. Some printers also perform the functions of a scanner, a photocopier, a fax machine, and fax machine. Sorry. Two main categories of printer are impact and non-impact.
Good, thank you. So once again, we go back to our diagram again. We have output devices, and we branched off to it soft copy, and soft copy can be branched off with display devices. And we have our hard copy, which can be branched off with printers. Now, our printers can then be branched off again with two other categories. We have impact and non-impact printers. So impact and non-impact printers. So I hope you guys are making use of your diagram. This should help you to remember all of these types and kinds and features and so on. So let's look at what is an impact printer and the kinds of impact printer that we have. Let's have Sierra. Can you read for us? Sierra?
Impact printers strike through a carbon or ink ribbon like a typewriter. They are noisy and do not usually print accessible graphics. However, they are useful for printing multiple copies using carbon paper and printing payroll or financial reports that require continuous sheets of paper formed to tear into individual sheets if necessary. Impact printers are largely obsolete now. However, there are still some dot matrix printers in existence.
Good. So, how does an impact printer function? It functions by striking through a carbon or inked ribbon. So, the word impact, does anyone have a definition of the word impact? What do you guys think?
Impact is the amount of force that you use
What was that?
to hit something.
Hit something?
Impact is impact is the amount of force you
A very hard hit.
A very hard hit? Okay, we can work with that. So, like if you're hitting something, you're hitting something with force, um, we'll work with that. So, hit, strike, basically the same. It is basically hitting or striking a carbon, striking something with hard force. Okay, so it is striking through a carbon or inked ribbon, and as it goes through this carbon or inked ribbon, it hits a paper, and that is how the information is printed onto the paper. So, impact printer. Okay, so you should be able to see an image here, and in the center here you see two wheels here, but in the center of it, that is where your ribbon is, and that is where your paper is also. So we have these hammers coming down from the top. This is just one simple example. We have this hammer coming down on the top. So these are what will be impacting the ribbon that is going to be impacting also on the paper, making the imprint on the paper, and that is how the information gets printed onto the paper. Now there are a few advantages and disadvantages that you should note. One, one disadvantage is that it is noisy, and you do not usually print acceptable graphics. So you don't get good quality with it. That's a disadvantage there. Because remember, it's impacted, so it might get some blotches, or it might not impact in the right place, or something may happen. So you don't get good graphics, but they're useful for printing multiple copies. So that is an advantage there. So, for example, like bills and invoices and receipts and so on, those documents that need multiple copies, it's useful in those cases. Instead of a printer printing one page at a time, this impact printer can create multiple copies at the same time. So most of you should know about a carbon paper. You put it between two papers, and as you write on one, it gets imprinted on another one. That is similar to how an impact printer works. But today it is largely obsolete, meaning we no longer use them, but some dot matrix printer are still in use. And let's see why. Alonzo, can you read for us? Anayo? No, we can't hear you, Alonso. Your mic is still off.
Yes, sir.
Hold on, let's see if Alonso can read. Your mic is going on and off, Alonso. Anyway, Anaya, could you read for us? Dot matrix.
Yes, sir. Dot matrix printer. A dot matrix printer, it uses pin to print a pattern of dots on paper. The main advantage of using dot matrix printers is for printing multiple copies using carbon paper. The main disadvantage is the relatively poor quality of printing, which can be read but cannot be used for reproduction or for business letters.
Good. So a dot matrix uses these pins to form the letter of your document. So if you look at the individual letter, dot matrix printer output. So if you look at the actual letter, you will see dots for the that would make up that letter. So this is why it's called a dot matrix, because it's basically a matrix of dots, dots that are in sequence with each other to form some sort of pattern. In this case, it forms the pattern of a letter. But it's not beneficial but the disadvantage is that it's poor quality. You can see how blotched it looks, and so it's not good for professional uses. So let's look at what a non-impact printer does. So let me see if you guys can guess this one. If an impact printer has to touch the paper in order to print, hit the paper, strike the paper in order to print, what would a non-impact printer have to do?
Sir, spray.
Spray?
So spray it, like just let the ink cartridge move across the paper.
I see you guys were reading. Very good. So that's one example. One example is spraying. So let's see what are the other kinds of non-impact. Let's have Aaron, can you read for us?
Yes, sir. These printers do not involve actually striking paper. Instead, ink spray or toner powder is used. The characters are again fixed onto the paper by heating. For example, because the printing element is simple and has no moving parts, these printers are inexpensive to manufacture and print quietly.
Good. So non-impact printer does not need to touch the paper. Does not need to strike the paper. It uses either a liquid ink so that it sprays it onto the paper, or it uses a toner powder. And when this ink or this powder gets onto the paper, it goes through a baking process and it basically gets heated and baked onto the paper. Now, because they have no moving parts, the advantage is that they are inexpensive. So most of you should know that if you go in Courts or some random store, you can actually buy a printer for 5,000, 6,000. They're relatively cheap. And they print quickly and they do so quietly. So that's another advantage there. So let's look at our first non-impact printer, and that is Inkjet Printers. Amelia, can you read for us?
Yes, sir. Ink price good quality printers that can print in both black and white or color. The quality of printers can be nearly as good as that of a laser printer. But inkjet printers are slower depending on what is to be printed. Speeds of 4 to 6 pages per minute may be achieved. They are significantly than the toner cartridges of laser printers. Color inkjet printers are ideal for use at home, where small quantity output is required for greeting cards, photographs, and schoolwork. Ordinary paper can be used.
Good, thank you. So we are looking at printers, and something you guys should take note of is that during this section here, what you'll be learning is that the different features of the printers, so that you can actually help your parents make a decision. If you gotta go and buy a printer, you can tell your parents what kind of printer to buy, what will be better for your situation, what will be better to satisfy your needs, and so on. So as we look at the different features, you will be able to know which printer is more effective for your situation. So the first one is an inkjet printer. Now, an advantage is that it's low price. So those $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 printers, they are all inkjet printers. They're relatively cheap. They have good quality. Another advantage, they can print black and white, even color, which is an advantage since some printers cannot print color. And the quality of printout is nearly as good as laser. So that means laser has a better quality output than the inkjet. Now, the inkjet is slower than the laser printer. The inkjet can give you 4 to 6 pages per minute. So those of you who have an inkjet printer at home, you ever see how long a page does take to come out of the. Have you ever noticed how long a page takes to come out?
Yes, sir.
It takes a while, right?
Yes, sir. It is like vibrating and stuff. How bad it is.
Right, because it's constantly going back and forth, printing across the paper, and it's not that slow, but it's still slow compared to an inkjet printer. Now, a disadvantage, well, that would be a disadvantage. Speed, it only goes 4 to 6 pages per minute, depending on how much information is on the page. And another disadvantage is that the cartridge needs to be replaced more frequently than a laser printer. Because the cartridge is so small and there's a small amount of ink inside of it, you actually deplete it a lot faster than a laser printer. So you'd actually have to be buying more cartridges for a inkjet than a laser printer. Now, a inkjet printer is good for home use. So for those of you who have like assignments, if you want to print cards, letters, and so on, it's good for that use, for small quantities of use. If now and then you print an assignment, every week you might print something, every other week, the inkjet printer is fine. Another advantage is that it uses ordinary paper. So let's see now why we would use a laser printer. Brandon, can you read for us? Brandon,
Yes, sir.
can you read?
From laser printers.
Yes.
Laser printers produce attractive documents at a high resolution and are much faster than inkjets. They are used in many workplaces because they're quiet, print quickly, can be stocked with a large number of sheets of paper, and produce very high quality documents. The printout from most laser printers tends to be 300 to 1200 dots printed per inch DPI. Many lines are printed simultaneously, and speeds of 8 to 12 pages per minute can be attained.
Alright, read the last paragraph.
Color lasers are also available. They are far more costly to buy than color inkjet printers, but produce higher quality images and are cheaper to run.
Good. So, if you want better quality output, you would choose a laser printer because as we would have mentioned about resolution, a laser printer produces higher resolution, and as we would have learned, higher resolution means better quality. Now, another advantage is that they are faster than the inkjets. So as you can see here, they have a speed of 8 to 12 pages per minute. So that's like 2 to 3 times faster than a inkjet printer. Another advantage is that they are quiet, they print quickly, and you can actually put a lot of paper inside of a laser printer so that you can print a lot of documents quickly. So if you're running a small business or if you're a small organization and you need to print a lot of documents, then you would make use of a laser printer. That doesn't mean you can't use it at home if you can afford one, that is, because the laser printers are affordable. We also have color, but when it comes to the toner, the cartridges are more larger, so you might pay a lot more money. Sometimes you might pay 10,000, 20,000, sometimes even 30,000 or more for a cartridge for a laser printer. It all depends on which one you buy. Some laser printer might only come black and white, like normal printers, but the colored one will cost you a little more, depending on which one you get to buy. Alright, let me finish it. See if we can finish it off quickly. Normal printers. Devika, can you read for us?
Yes, sir. Terminal printers use heat on chemically treated paper to form characters. Many automatic banking machine (ABM) receipts, debit or credit card slips, and even some ultrasound scan images are printed using terminal printers. These printers are quiet and more recent ones print quickly. However, the paper is expensive and the print eventually fades if exposed to light or heat.
Good. So those of you who would have went to maybe like KFC or a bank or churches, whatever the case may be, and you kept the bill, you ever notice what happened to that bill after some time?
Sorry, it starts to fade.
Right, it starts to fade. And that is because they used a thermal paper, a thermal printer. Now, a thermal printer, one disadvantage is that it uses a special kind of paper. And that paper, it uses heat from that chemically treated paper in order to form the characters. So, thermal printer uses heat and it uses a special kind of paper. Now, they are quiet, which is an advantage, and they print quickly. But the paper is expensive because it needs that chemical on it. And a disadvantage, not a disadvantage, is that it fades over time. So bills like from a bank or KFC, a restaurant, or so on will make use of these thermal printers. Let's just try to finish off output. Just a few more three more topics here. 3D printers. Emmanuel, I think you read already.
Yes, sir.
Rizwan, could you read?
Yes, sir. 3D printers. Three-dimensional printers are similar to inkjet printers, but instead, a 3D model is created layer by layer from the bottom upward. The model is created over many hours, as each layer is printed on top of another. However, instead of using ink as with the inkjet, the 3D printer uses melted plastic that sticks each layer to the previous one.
Good, thank you. So, a 3D printer is not being used to print documents. It is being used to print actual 3D objects. So it uses a melted plastic instead of ink, so that it can create an actual 3D object, an actual object that you can hold, feel, like if a company would have made it. So you can basically create any sort of 3D model that you would want. Now, a disadvantage is that it takes hours to create to print. But if you think about it, that's necessary because it's not like you're printing a document. You're printing an actual 3D model of something. Now, let's look at perk plotters. Alicia, can you read for us?
Sir, car designers are car designers, architects, and engineers who wish to print accurate charts, diagrams, and 3D drawings output not to a laser printer but to a plotter. A plotter uses colored pens or toner to draw an image on paper. The paper is handled in different ways depending on the type of plotter. Flatbed plotters hold the paper still while the pen moves. Drum plotters roll the paper over a cylinder, while pinch plotters are a mixture of the two. The advantage of a drum plotter is that it can produce very large drawings.
Good. So, alright, thank you. So, if you want to create a very large image, a large print, you would make use of a plotter. And there are two examples of a plotter. We have a flatbed plotter. So the paper would stay in one place and the ink or the pen would move across that paper in order to print the information. Notice it is a large bed, so a large image could go on this bed here, this flat bed, and the pen would basically move across that flat surface in order to print the document or print the poster. We have a drum plotter, and it's basically like a wheel or a drum inside of the printer, and the document moves across that drum in order for you to print long documents, large documents, like this image here. For those large posters, it uses the drum plotter. And the pinch plotter is a combination of the two. So when you hear plotters, think of large diagrams, 3D drawings, posters, and so on. Alright, audio devices. Tyra, can you read?
Yes, sir. Most computers sold to homes and schools include a sound card. This allows both the recording recording input and playback output of sound. Microphones record sounds while loudspeakers can play song of a group of people. Figure 1.13. However, headphones are more popular for users who wish to listen to the song without disturbing anyone around them. These devices are small speakers that need to be placed to the one or both ears. Earphones or earbuds are very small headphones that fit inside the ear. A headset is a set of headphones which has a microphone attached to allow you to speak and listen at the same time.
Read the last paragraph.
Song may also be output from a digital file or as music from a CD. Some software applications will allow word processed text to be read back to the user. This can be very important to young children or the visually impaired.
Good. So, quick question. Anyone? A audio device. What kind of output is that? If you remember, soft copy or hard copy?
Soft copy.
Very
Sir
good.
Hard.
Hard?
Yes, sir. Sir Hard copy.
Why would you say hard? We're talking about audio. We're talking about sound. Any explanation as to why? Okay, well, it's not hard copy, it's soft copy. Because, as I mentioned earlier, soft copy is temporary. So, if you stop playing the music, if you stop playing the audio, if the audio device dies, then you no longer have that audio. You no longer have that output. So, sound is a soft copy output. It is temporary, it is not permanent. So you can use a speaker, you can use a headphone in order to have this audio. You can create the audio from a digital file, for example, if you have an MP3 file on your phone or your computer, or you can even play it back from a CD, a DVD, whatever the case may be. Okay, that has brought us to the end of output devices. Now, these questions here will be up once again as your homework. I haven't created as yet, but you should be see it by the end of this afternoon. If you guys, so that has brought us to the end of output devices. Today we looked at two kinds of output device. We looked at soft copy and hard copy. Soft copy is not permanent. That refers to what we see on a computer monitor, the audio that we get from a speaker or from a computer, whatever the case may be, your phone, or electrical signals. Anything that is output and that we cannot feel and touch, that is soft copy. It is temporary. It doesn't always stay. But hard copy is permanent output. Output that we can feel and touch and that we can always have and keep. So one soft copy output is display devices that we looked at. We looked at the different features. We looked at a hard copy output, which is printing devices, and we looked at the two kinds, impact and non-impact printers. And then we looked at the last soft copy output, which is audio devices. So that has brought us to the end of today's class. If you do not have any questions, you are free to leave for your next class.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
This is not pertaining to the class, but I had bought the information technology book for CXC,
Yes.
and when I'm sharing in the class what's in the book, this book is missing a lot of information, like a lot of things. Like for the printers, the 3D printer, Jakia, there's like a new version of the book and there's also an old version of the book. So yeah,
So
maybe
I
that's
have
why.
the book and it
Yeah,
has everything
this
inside.
one
Which
says this
which
one says
edition
for
of the
the
book do you have,
CSS.
Jakia?
I don't know. I don't see an edition here.
On the front
I
page,
just see
you
it just
should
says
see an
for
edition.
it doesn't
Second
have
edition,
an
third
edition
edition. I'm using the third edition, which is the latest version, latest edition.
it doesn't it doesn't have an edition on it. It doesn't say.
Does it
It
have the
says
same?
for the new syllabus
Does it have the same name?
covering programs with chapter. Pardon me?
Does it have the same name as? Did I? Was I the one that sent you the image?
I don't think so. I don't know what
Information Technology by Glendegee and Ronald Blades. Are those the author? Maybe it's a different kind of IT book you have. The one I'm using is by Oxford. Is a third edition by Glendegee and Ronald Blades.